Okay, I got thinking about my game collection this morning, and many times you see in my videos, you can probably see my game collection in the background. Some of you may be curious as to what I have. So I thought I'd go through the collection, show you what I have, and explain a few things. I got curious as to what historical periods I was interested in gaming, and I really have it down to not that many. I collect games on the ancient world, 15th to 17th century, 18th century Napoleonics, American Civil War, Indian Wars, World War One, World War Two, modern and miscellaneous science fiction, etc. So when I went to count the collection, I thought for sure ancients would be first. As it turns out, it's not. So let's go through my collection generally, and I'll make a comment about each game. Okay, I kind of arranged them chronologically, so the ancients are up there. You can see a lot of the great battles of history titles. There's Hoplite, Alexander the Conquerors, Alexander the Great, Peloponnesian War, Chariots of Fire, Conquest of Gaul, and so on. Sword of Rome would be one of my favorite ancients games for multiplayer. And for two-player, one of my favorites would be Hannibal. But since it got Caesar, Rome versus Gaul, which is also by Mark Simonich, that could easily edge out Hannibal as my favorite ancients game. Cataphract, Caesar, SBQR of course, and the classic Caesar at Alesia. Then to spill over into the later centuries, we've got the Virgin Queen. Almost never get to play it. It's multiplayer. We've got Blackbeard. I'm interested in pirates, and we've got Crusader. It's the only game I have on that period. And we've got here, Armada, the Invincible Armada. I'm also interested in naval to a large degree. And we go up to the 7 Years' War period, Frederick the Great, which I've got on the table right now, Mohawk, 1759. Of course, I'm a Canadian, so Siege of Quebec is always of interest to me. These two titles are Charlton's Quarter and Almost a Miracle, American Revolution, 1776. That was my favorite game for close to 20 years. Very good game. Wilderness War. Then we get down into Mark Miklos' series, Monmouth, Savannah, Germantown, Guilford, Saratoga, so on. Got New York 1776 by Worthington, American Revolution by Jim Dunnigan, Freeman's Farm. Then we get into some naval, and then we're starting to leak into the Napoleonic period. Flying Colors, Borodino and Friedland, those are magazine games. Campaigns of 1777, magazine game, very good. Of course, the old classic Wooden Ships and Iron Men. And there's some of my favorite Napoleonic games. GGW 1815. We have Eylau, a battle I like studying. There's the classic La Bataille de la Moscova, unpunched. I played it back in the 70s, but I've not even punched this copy. Probably never will get to play it. One of my absolute favorite Napoleonic games, Eylau by GGW. Below that is 1812 and the old classic Borodino game, which appeared in the S&T magazine. Continuing Napoleonics, we've got the new version of War and Peace there. Rising Eagles, which is Austerlitz. The Napoleonic Wars by GMT. That's my favorite multiplayer Napoleonic game. Bonaparte at Marengo. Quite different. I've got mixed feelings about that one. Of course, there's Kevin McPartland's Amateurs to Arms, classic strategic game of the War of 1812. There's my own Mr. Madison's War. And then we get into the Civil War. And this is the category that I have the most titles. I've got, 25 titles in that, which is no surprise because it's the Civil War which actually got me into wargaming. Antietam, Shiloh by Worthington, Iron and Oak, For the People, which I don't play anymore, Bull Run, and then we start the series there, great campaigns of the Civil War. And down near the bottom, I've got all the old classics, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg. I keep those for sentimental reasons, not that I'll ever play them. The old Wilderness Campaign by SPI, love that game. And one title of the old great battles of the Civil War, Drive on Washington. This was a terrific series, and I had them all at one time. But over the years, I've just shed them because the series morphed into, they kept changing it. And after all, I just didn't like it anymore. So there's the great campaigns of the Civil War. At the bottom, U.S. Civil War by Mark Simonich. I love that game. Then we get into a little bit more, getting more modern now. Cowboys by Worthington. I'm also a fan of the Old West. And I'll have to move the camera here. Yeah, you've got Halls of Montezuma. It's the only game I have on the Mexican War. The 3 games by Michael Taylor having to do with the Indian Wars. Little Bighorn, Adobe Walls, Rosebud Creek. Below that, we've got the card game, Kaiser's Pirates, Paths of Glory, the classic World War I. And my other favorite World War I is The Lamps Are Going Out. I love the 2 games, Paths of Glory and Lamps Are Going Out. More recently, Raiders of the Deep, the World War I submarine game. I've got Fear God and Dreadnought, but I don't really even consider that to be a game. It's really a series of rules. It's miniatures. It's absolutely fanatic level. I'd never play it, but it is good for the data. One of my favorite and one of my few World War II games, Empire of the Sun, Mark Herman. Absolute classic game. Okay, Beneath the Med, the old submarine game, Solitaire. Pacific War, Mark Herman's, Unpunched. I did play it back in the 80s, but I don't play it now. I keep it for the information and sentimental value. Atlantic Storm, the card game. South Pacific by Mark Herman. Below that, the old Jutland game, World War I. And you can see off to the right there, Brawling Battleships Steel. Now up there, I've got some of the old classic Avalon Hills, Bismarck, Submarine, Midway, Leyte Gulf, which is my own version of Midway, except it's Leyte Gulf. And the first board game I ever owned, U-Boat. And 2 way at the top, which I've never even played Battle of Britain, but I do own it. Hunt for Red October, well, I played it. It's okay. And that's more or less my collection, not counting the magazine games. Okay, we're off the tripod here. So these are the magazine games. A little bit of every period. Conquistador, Guilford Courthouse, Napoleon at Waterloo, Leipzig 20, Battle of Belmont, Sea Devils, and so on. These are all the magazine games. A good way to store them is put them in these containers. And that's about it. So, overall, I've got about 125 games. And 125 games is kind of puny compared to some of the collections I see on Board Game Geek. Some of you guys out there have got 1,200 games, which really freaks me out. I then made up a little document to find out, of all the periods I do, what designer do I have more titles of? And I guess it came as no surprise. Joe Balkowski came first because I have more of the great campaigns of the Civil War from him than any other designer. Now, I know that Ed Beach and other people have designed scenarios for them, but I'm giving the original series to Joe Balkowski. He's the original designer. The second designer is Mark Herman. Got quite a few by Mark. Caesar, Cataphract, Chariots of Fire, Great Battles of Alexander, Caesar, SPQR, and War Valley, which he helped with Richard Berg. So it's Richard Berg and Mark Herman together. And the third was Mark Miklos, because I have a great many of his American Revolution titles. Below that, we get into the John Young titles. 1, 2, 3, 4 titles. Mark Simonich, 2 or 3. Michael Taylor, Craig Taylor, Frank Chadwick. I do like his games too. Oh, and I forgot the futuristic and science fiction ones. I've got Space Corp. I do like it. Haven't played it much. And there you go. The only land battle World War II game I own is Normandy 44. And above that is Attack Sub. I'm also very interested in submarines. So, talking with John Kranz, I told him I've ordered Russian Campaign, so I will have that pretty soon, as soon as it comes out. So, some of you may be wondering why I don't do World War II land. I just never had that much interest in it. And so the videos I do tend to be the ones from the era I enjoy at the time. And so those are all the eras I really have an interest in. Like I said, I'm not a collector. I'm not really a gamer. I play games because I like history. And the games I buy usually have to do with that history. So I hope this hasn't been too boring. I mean, hey, just looking at somebody's collection, who cares? Anyway, this is more for my own consumption too. The date is what, December 4th, 2020. COVID-19 is still ravaging the world, so we're spending a lot of time indoors. Anyway, that's my collection, and thank you for watching.